The Knight's Tale, Part 4. Great was the festival they held that day, and Athens in the lusty month of May put everyone so well in countenance they spent all Monday at a joust and dance, and the high services of Venus. Yet because they knew that up they'd have to get, and early too, to witness the great fight, they went to betimes on Monday night. Next morning, when the day began to spring, clattering horse and noise of harnessing echoed through all the hostleries about. Up to the palace cantered rout on rout of lords on palfreys, stallions many a steed, and what device of harness too, indeed, so rich, so outlandish, what a deal of goldsmith work, embroidery, and steel, bright shields and trophies, headpieces and charms, great golden helmets, hauberks, coats of arms, lords on apparelled coursers, squires too, and knights belonging to their retinue, spears being nailed and helmets buckled strong, strapping of shields and lacing up of thong. The work was urgent, not a man was idle, the foamy steeds gnawing the golden bridle, the armorers up and down and round about, racing with file and hammer through the rout, yeomen on foot and commonly come, with pipe and clarion, trump and kettledrum, armed with short sticks, making such a rattle, it sounded like the blast of bloody battle. The palace full of people up and down, here 3, there 10, in all the talk of town, and making bets about the Theban knights. Says one, he'll win, another, not by rights. Some backed the man whose beard was black and squared, some backed the bald, and some the shaggy-haired. Said one, there's a grim fellow, I'll be bound. He has a battle-axe, weighs 20 pound. And prophecy went seething round the hall, long after day had sprung upon them all. Great Theseus was awoken out of sleep by minstrelsy and noise about the keep, but kept his chamber, a resplendent room, till the 2 Theban knights, to both of whom an equal honor was done, were brought in his presence. Thronged in a window, giving on a pleasance, sat Theseus, like a god in panoply, and all the people crowded there to see the Duke and offer him their reverence, and hear what orders he might issue thence. A herald on the scaffold shouted, Ho! Till all the noise was quieted below. Seeing at last the people hushed and still, he thus declared the mighty Theseus's will. Our lord the Duke has on his high discretion considered the destruction and suppression of gentle blood were he to jeopardize the lives of those engaging under guise of mortal battle. Wishing none to die, his grace now proposes to modify his ordinance. On forfeit of your lives, no sort of dart, no pollexes or knives may pass into the lists or be conveyed. Thither no stabbing sword with pointed blade be drawn or even carried at the side. Further, no pair of combatants shall ride more than one course with spears, descending thence, to thrust on foot only in self-defense. If any man be injured, none shall take his life. He shall be carried to the stake. That is to be ordained on either side, and there convened by force he shall abide. And should the principal of either faction be taken to the stake or killed in action, all fighting shall determine thereupon. God speed you all, go forward and lay on. With mace and longsword you may fight your fill. Now go your ways. This is his grace's will. The people rifted heaven with a shout of merriest good humor, crying out, God bless our Duke for doing what he can to save the blood of many a gentleman. Up go the trumpets and the melody. Forth to the lists canter the company. As they were bidden to the city verge, the streets were hung in cloth of gold, not serge. And, like a lord, the Duke began to ride, with these 2 Theban knights on either side. Behind them rode the Queen and Emily, and between them another company, of one or other according to their rank, threading through the city with the clank of hoof and armor to the lists that lay beyond. It was not fully prime of day when Theseus took his seat in majesty. Hippolyta the queen and Emily were with him, other ladies ranked about, and round the scaffoldage a seething rout. And westward, look, under the Martian gate, Arcita and his 100 knights await. And now under a banner of red march on, and at the self-same moment Palamon enters by Venus's gate, and takes his place under a banner of white, with cheerful face. You had not found, though you had searched the earth, two companies so equal in their worth. Never were two so splendidly arrayed, and there was none so wise as to have weighed which of them had the advantage of his foe, in valiance, age, degree, or strength of show. They were so equal, one could only guess. In two formations they began to dress. And when the roll was called, that all might see their number was not swelled by treachery, the gates were shut, and then the herald cried, Young knights, now do your duty, show your pride. The heralds then withdrew, their work was done. Out blared the trumpet and the clarion. There is no more to say, but east and west in go the spears in readiness. At the rest in go the spurs into the horse's side. It's easy seeing which can joust and ride. There the shafts shiver on the shield so thick. Out through his breastbone feels the thrust and prick. Up springs the spears to 20 foot in height. Out go the long swords flashing silver bright, hewing the helmets as they shear and shred. Out bursts the blood in streams of sternest red. The mighty maces swing, the bones are bashed. One thrusting through the thickest throng has crashed. There the strong steeds have stumbled, down goes all, man under foot and rolling like a ball. Another on his feet with truncheon pound hurdles a rider and his horse to ground. One's wounded in the body, whom they take, spite of his teeth, and bear him to the stake. Was as ordained, and there he has to stay. One more is carried off the other way. From time to time the Duke decrees a rest, to think and be refreshed as they think best. Many a time our Thebans in the flow of battle met and did each other woe, and each unhorsed the other. There could be no tiger in the vale of Galgaphy raging in search after a stolen cub. So cruel was Arcite with spear and club. For jealousy of heart to Palamon, no lion so fierce to look upon. In all Benamaran, and none so savage, being hunted, nor so hunger-mad in ravage. For blood of prey as Palamon for Arcite, the blows upon their helmets beat, and the red blood runs out on man and steed. There comes at last an end to every deed, and ere into the west the sun had gone, strong King Emeritus took Palamon, as he was fighting with Arcite, still fresh, and made his sword bite deeply in his flesh. It asked the strength of 20 men to take the yet unyielded Palamon to stake. Seeking a rescue, King Lycurgus coursed toward Palamon, but was himself unhorsed, and King Emeritus, for all his strength, was flung out of the saddle a sword's length, by Palamon's last stroke, in a sweeping rake. But all for naught. They brought him to the stake. Nothing could help, however hard he fought. His hardy heart must stay there. He was caught, by force, and by the rules decided on. Who clamors now in grief but Palamon, that may no more go in again and fight? And when the noble Theseus saw this sight, he rose and thundered forth to every one, Ho! Stop this fight, no more, for it is done. I will be true judge, and no partisan. The Theban prince, Arcita is the man, and shall have Emily won by fortune's grace. A tumult of rejoicing filled all space. From every throat, in such a caterwaul, it seemed as if the very lists would fall. What now can lovely Venus do above? What is she saying, hapless queen of love? Wanting her will, her eyes were filled with mists, and shining tears fell down upon the list. She cried, I am disgraced and put to shame. But Saturn said, Peace, daughter, watch the game. Mars has his will, his knight has done his boon. But by my head it shall be your turn soon. The trumpeters, with loudest minstrelry, and the shrill heralds, shouting frenziedly, were in high joy for honor of Arcite. But listen now, and don't give way to heat. See what a miracle happened thereupon. The fierce Arcita, with no helmet on, riding his courser round to show his face, cantered the whole length of the jousting place, fixing his eye on Emily aloft, and her returning gaze was sweet and soft, for women speaking generally are prone to follow fortune's favors once they're known. She was his whole delight, his joy of heart. Out of the ground, behold, a fury start, by Pluto sent, at the request of Saturn. Arcita's horse in terror danced a pattern, and leapt aside, and foundered as he leapt. And ere he was aware, Arcite was swept out of the saddle and pitched upon his head, onto the ground, and there he lay for dead. His breast was shattered by the saddle bow. As black he lay as any coal or crow, for all the blood had run into his face. Immediately they bore him from the place, sadly, to Theseus's palace. What avail, though he was carved out of his coat of mail, and put to bed with every care and skill? Yet he was still alive, and conscious still, and calling ceaselessly for Emily. Theseus, attended by his company, came slowly home to Athens in full state of joyous festival, no less elate for this misfortune, wishing not to cast a gloom upon them all for what had passed. Besides, they said Arcita would not die, he would recover from his injury. And then there was another thing that filled all hearts with pleasure. No one had been killed, though some were badly hurt. Among the rest, especially the man with stoven breast. As for the other wounds and broken arms, some produced salves, and some relied on charms, herb pharmacies, and sage to make them trim. They drank them off, hoping to save a limb.